Hello. Hello, everybody. Yo Rigel Kivanov. Hope I have said it correctly. Um, First of all, I'm sharing my screen. Sorry. I should have it prepared before.
Yeah, we can see it perfectly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Well, first of all, let me excuse Maria. She's got a job recently as secondary teacher, and she wasn't able to attend the session of today. In our paper, we present a brief review about the inclusion of invisible students in the university of our country, Spain. In the first part, we deal with some aspect about who these students are and how policies and legal regulation try to meet their needs and their specific characteristics. And in the second part, we provide some students' testimonies that shed some light on their day-to-day experience at the campus. So during the last 4 or 5 decades, the Spanish university has experienced a big shift in the sense of becoming more and more massified and also receiving an increasingly more diverse student body. Our thesis is that this plurality of the student profile has not implied that the institution has got adapted to their characteristics or the need that might derive from their diversity. We use the term invisible students as other authors have used similar terms like non-traditional student or post-traditional student, disadvantaged student, underrepresented student. In all cases, we refer to a heterogeneous group of students that includes mature students, students from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, students who have family burdens or responsibility, students with special educational needs, or people that belong to other cultures and nationality. In all these cases, students may experience some difficulty with regards to their participation and progress at the university. In Spain, we do not have a national comprehensive demographic or statistical report that informs us about what percentage of the Spanish university students might belong to one or more of these groups. We have only partial reports that provide figures like those you have in the presentation. According to those figures, we can estimate that at least 1 out of 3 Spanish students present characteristics that are different from the usual or majority pattern. That is what McNair called an invisible majority. Invisible in the sense that they may not be visible for policy managers, policy makers, managers, or teachers, and even not visible enough for us who research in the field. So, with regards to our policy to widening participation in the higher education, we can say they are not very bad in general. For the last 5 decades, we have a special access route for those students who are 25 years or more. These students normally don't meet the normal university entrance requirements. But more recently, new advances have been made in order to promote the access, the participation, and the progress of new audiences in the university life. These advances consist basically in the creation of new rules, new access routes for special groups. All these new rules are accompanied by a quota reservation for them or a certain percentage of places. And also another expenses are related to the improvements in the services that the university normally provide for all students. So I can say that most Spanish universities have now their own services which provide different types of support, like welcoming programs, guidance program, mentoring, job placement services, foundation courses, etc. However, the type of intervention they normally carry out is clearly extracurricular, and it aims at solving the problem of the student that demands their service, but with little impact or no impact on the content that may be contributing or creating such a problem or need. So we have a legal framework and a good infrastructure of services, but we still lack of information about these students and the possible difficulties they experience on a day-to-day basis. It seems, in our opinion, as if these students are invisible for the institution, and their peculiar characteristics are diluted in a homogenizing vision of the university student body that does not take into account the disadvantages that diversity can entail. For this reason, we are presenting here some perspective or testimonies of some students who have differential characteristics. This information comes from several previous research projects. We have no intention to generalize, no detail specifically the methodological procedures. We just say that all the studies were carried out by means of biographical and in-depth interview. We use pseudonyms in all cases. And one of the first aspects that come out when reading their testimony is that they are very aware that the academic progress for them requires a greater effort and a special motivation, determination to achieve their aims. For example, in this quote of man, you can see how he's very aware that he has to do the double in comparison with his peers if he wants to achieve the same thing. It may be because they were, or it may be because they have family responsibility or they have a disability. All these students said that they have to make many sacrifices or readjustment. And this readjustment could operate across a wide spectrum of behaviors and strategies. Like, for example, devoting a lot of time to both work, family, and university, or in some cases, making some family reorganization that can sometimes involve breaking with established models. This is the case of Emma. She was a mature student with two little daughter, and she had to hire someone to help her with the girls and the housework. And she questioned, am I neglecting my family? Is it worthy? Because my girls always criticize me for being on the computer all day. So this is not good, it's hard for me. So is it worthy? And in other cases, adaptation can imply sort of a physical effort. This is the case of people with disability. For example, in the case of Iria, she was a girl on a wheelchair, and she has asked once and again to overcome several architectonical barriers in the faculty. For example, she is in that quote mentioning how she has difficulty to reach the buttons of the lift, and she once and again claimed for this barrier to be overcome. And the only answer she received was she was given a stick, and she was saying, now you can reach the button. Or the case also for Alvarito Cat, which is a deaf student, and that he said that he always has problems with the hearing equipment in the microphone, and he was once and again asking for the staff of the university to make sure that this equipment was properly working. And in some cases, for some students, the readjustment may imply sort of a hiding of their ethnic identity. This is the case of Roma students like Refre. He said Gitano is the word in Spanish for Roma, for Gypsy people. And he said, declare myself as a Gitano, I simply don't speak about it. I have told my close friends I'm Roma because I don't have any problem with saying I'm Gitano, because they are my friends and I never heard any derogatory comment from them regarding Roma. But when it comes to anyone in the classroom, somebody that I just see once or twice a week, 1 hour, or from whom I have heard negative things, I simply pass. So this testimony and many others show an effort to get adapted to the institution, to its rules, to its value, to its time, and show that it seems that there is only one univocal model of being a student. At the same time, there is a predominant teaching model, which is also univocal. It is a transmissive teaching that prevails and is based on PowerPoint presentation and normally neglect the incorporation of their knowledge condition or even their needs. When we focus in this topic and we ask them to describe their relation with teacher and the treatment they receive from them, there is a word that appears very frequently. In the first moment is normal, the word they use to describe their relation with teachers. For example, like these quotes you can see, I don't think they treat me in a different way to that of my mate. Always showing equity and apply the same criteria so that there is no preferential treatment for anyone. But if we go into a more critical look at the relations with teachers, we find that it seems like both students and teachers have internalized an egalitarian model in which there is no room for equity and diversity of interest. For example, that's the case of AJ. She said, most of my teachers understand and appreciate my situation, but logically, they cannot demand less from me than what they demand to the rest of my peers. Is it that there is a common assumption in the university culture which stresses sorry, I can't see, which stresses the idea that requirements should be the same for everyone, and that it's the student who must adapt to them and not the opposite, and without any exception. So only 2 of our interviewees went more deeply into the issue of positive discrimination, questioning the difference between equity and equality. That's the case again of Iria. Remember, she was the girl in the wheelchair. She said, my teacher, of course, are aware of my disability because it is obvious, but none of them usually approaches me to ask if I need something special. They treat me like they treat the rest of my peers. And these are 2 different aspects. One positive dimension that is, I feel normal, like the other, I don't feel special at all. But it also has a negative dimension, which is that maybe I would like them to worry a bit about me sometimes. And in certain aspects, being treated normally in your situation is a disadvantage in itself, and you feel a bit discriminated against. And also it's the case of Nasser. Nasser was a mature Arabian student who was studying architecture, and he in that moment he couldn't speak Spanish very well, so he talked about what he called bad justice. He said that for him it wasn't fair that he was compared with the young peer she was in the classroom with. So I think that there is a teaching model to which all students must adapt. And only very rare occasion, there are some adaptation for these students. But all these adaptations they describe are always peripheral, non-substantial. They doesn't apply to central aspect of the learning process. For example, teachers can sometimes change their tutorial time, let them to arrive late to a lecture, or things like that, but they never change the core aspect of the curriculum, like the exams, the evaluation, the tasks they have to present, the internships. They are not flexible in those aspects. So to conclude, we can say that in our country, we have adequate measures, more or less, to diversify access to diversity. But we fail when it comes in terms of academic progress, competition, and even successful transition to the labor market. We have a teaching model, basically traditional. This lack of recognition of the existing diversity in the classroom in favor of a supposed equality of treatment, in our opinion, not only implies neglecting special needs, but also prevents us from benefiting from what diverse students can contribute. They have normally higher motivation, they are more likely to participate in lecture. In many cases, they have greater life and professional experience, and we are not taking benefit from this. In relation to the student support services, we think that they have a key role, but the problem is that we have to bear in mind that they need to be contextualized and need to be easily seen, easily accessible for students. So it's important that we question the traditional hierarchies and the deficit model of the students underachieving. And we need an important cultural shift in the sense of making the university environment more welcoming to invisible students. Many research have proved that the itineraries of non-traditional students are generally more diverse and they are not very predictable. So in this context, if we want the university to become more inclusive, more excellent, it's important that we listen to the students themselves. We give them voice to their experiences, expectations, and needs. Finally, must remain to be done not only in Spanish university, but in many other European and worldwide universities, if we want to become inclusive and excellent institution. Quoting our colleagues, we need to advance in theoretical frameworks as well as processes, programs, and collaborative work. And thank you for your attention. We wait for your questions and reflection. Go on, Afizernet.